Yeah, I'm Janos Gaspar and I'm the game director on Three Kingdoms Total War.
I'm Simon Mann and I'm a senior designer on Three Kingdoms Total War. So one of the things we always strive to do as a studio, especially a historical studio, is we take a source material of a period that excites us and we really want to kind of bring it to life. And for us, we made the decision to do Three Kingdoms, and one of the things we realized very early on is that we can't do the tale justice or do the history justice in this instance without characters being the forefront of the game. I mean, if you read either the Romance of the Three Kingdoms or the Records, which are two of our kind of core sources with this, you note that it's all about characters, right? The records themselves is a list of people and what they have done, and it just shows the kind of culturally how important people are and characters to that thing. Be they great heroes or evil villains, they're actually at the core of what makes this period so interesting.
Yeah, and having made these historical games for a while, you always have the set of events. Like you look into history books, look into archaeology, usual sources that we all gather up before we start to make a game. It's usually focusing on the events. But this is a very specific era where we have not just the events, as Simon said, but there is the records as well that is giving motivation, and not just motivation for a single person, because yeah, you can find like autobiography or a biography of Napoleon, like how he behaved and how he felt about certain things, but not for a wider cast of characters. But here we have the facts, and we have motivation, personality traits, and everything about the characters, and it's nice giving that two sides of the story. That one is the facts, and the other is like how the contemporary people would have seen the events, the people, their connection, and that gives us a very nice new texture that we never really explored before.
Yeah, and that's quite a nice thing as well. Like, it lets us kind of, because we're going so deep into characters, Janos mentioned briefly there, personality traits, things like that, all these kind of, it's like buzzwords, but exciting new features for us that helps us bring these characters to life, not just as deeper characters, but also as kind of authentic characters to the literature. I mean, Cao Cao, we want you to know who Cao Cao is, right? We want you to get to know him. You're filling his boots, you're in his shoes, and his personality traits will match kind of our reading of Cao Cao and what he actually acts like in the kind of novels and kind of purportedly in the records as well. And that's a really cool thing. And the idea is that every character is born with their personality, right? It's kind of in you at birth. You've got a fate. It's deterministic for you, and you're discovering that as you kind of travel through the kind of great mystery that is life and fighting your way across Three Kingdoms. And you get that with every character. You're discovering people, getting to know them, and then they're forming kind of friendships and rivalries with one another. We're calling the system Guanji, which is kind of a quite core Chinese cultural concept of kind of social interaction and interpersonal relationships. So it's your friends, your brothers, people you know, people you hate. It's kind of your wider network, as it were, of people that you're aware of you and you're aware of.
Yeah, it's almost we say that it's like the LinkedIn of the ancient China, that you, according to like this Guanji, that there are multiple facets of relationship, but you have the family relationship, you have the brotherly like friendship, you have the master and the subject, so that is more like the administrative, how you place yourself, where is your place in the world, and you have your enemies, people you don't like, and these are forming everyone's life. And if you think about like Total War games, you played some. Previously, every single character, everything was just a tool in your hand, it's just a pawn. But we thought that it would be an interesting thing to do something where characters' personalities, you have to reason with them, you have to understand them to some extent, you have to look who they are, and sometimes make your decision based on what they want or what they can bring. Like previously you hired mainly characters because this is a good warrior and that's why I bring him to my faction. But now you almost look at the CV of the character when you are hiring that, yeah, this is a good warrior and this is not a good warrior, but he has good friends, and that might be very handy in the future. So it gives way more layers, way more color to all the characters and your decisions.
And this is all happening dynamically as well, right? People are making friends, rivalries throughout the campaign as it's going on, and some people just will never get along, right? Two individuals like Lu Bu and Zhao Hudun, they won't get along. They're not really friends at any point, especially after losing an eye. I'd be slightly irritated. But that's kind of the core thing, is it's about these dynamics and how they actually affect. So characters aren't just pawns on a board that you're moving around, they're individuals with kind of needs, desires, kind of whether they're happy or not in your faction is something you now have to pay attention to and build upon.
Well, I think it's the story that is something that overall, not just talking about the characters, but the story itself is the Romance of Three Kingdoms novel starts with a famous quote about like how China has to fall apart and unite again, and that is essentially the cycle. And it's very interesting, just narrative-wise. It's perfect setting for a Total War game because there are a lot of different strong people facing against each other, a big upheaval that is moving a big portion of people across the lands. But on top of that, we have not just the characters, but the stories. There are a lot of like stories that we never had before in the game, and we never visited China before. So it's all together. It's a nice package for us.
I think one of the things that works really well, we discovered, is kind of touching on the characters a bit, is we've got 11 playable factions at launch, right? And so when you kind of load up the game, you'll see these 11 factions ahead. They're all vastly different, right? Each faction is going to have its own unique playstyle, and kind of drawing back to the character a bit, we're trying to put you in the shoes of that individual, so the mechanics will be themed around who it is. So Cao Cao's mechanics are very specific to him, whereas in other factions would be different. But the whole thing is, it gave us a lot of different factions and really diverse factions. China as a landmass is massive. It's a really large campaign map, certainly, that we've done this time. It's kind of, normally we're quite rectangular, this one's very large and square, and it's pretty much all land. It's like, there is so much land there, and so many different biomes going into it as well, you know, kind of arid, cold, deserts, things like that. Like, but the one thing about that gave us is these factions that are all in different areas, different places, with different people leading them as well. So it kind of really lends itself perfectly to Total War.
Yeah, and usually we say that previously we had Total War games that are focusing on character, but we never had a character-centric game, and here with this we can do something where the differences between factions is not because it's different races, it's not because it's arbitrary like different cultures, because it's led by different individuals, different very strong individuals, and that has a mark on the faction itself.
There's quite a lot of stuff that I think we will be revealing at later dates. This is an iceberg, really. That I'd love to give you everything, but yeah, we've still got a lot of stuff in development with it, and there is a lot of things that period has allowed us to do. Like you say, like aside from purely characters and factions, we look at the mechanics. One of the things that I think we talked about in side meetings a while ago, like actually it's really cool that we can take the book, because we've got the records book, which is the history, the romance, which is the flavour, as it were. You know, it's kind of the real meat of it, and it is quite a fun book to read at that point. But the nice thing is actually a lot of our mechanics and ideas we've taken off the page. I mean, this, as I said to you, this is where the characters came from, but there's lots of other systems that we've gone like, oh, okay, this is a part of this history. Let's take this out and add that to our repertoire.
Well, I think we work in a way that Creative Assembly is now a big studio. We have over 500 people, and multiple Total War teams are working on different strands of Total War. But one of the benefits that we are working together, that we constantly cross-pollinate all the ideas. So you could say that although it was Three Kingdoms is in development for quite a while, but we always carefully look at all the changes that were good, everything that was interesting, anything that was received well, and as much as possible we try to just get it back into the game.
I think the biggest one is actually the ability to iterate and explore our game space. Like, every one of the games we make is actually quite distinctly different, I think. If you look at it, I mean, certainly, you know, looking at Three Kings at the moment, like, from not just an art perspective, but gameplay and the way the campaign's all going to work out and stuff like that, it's a very unique game, and it stands up as a product on itself. Yes, it's part of the Total War franchise, but it's an individual game of a moment at the same time too, and I think we can definitely levy that same kind of lens over the other Total War products that have come out, be it Thrones of Britannia as part of our new kind of Saga series, or Warhammer 2 itself and whatever continues on from that. And I think the nice thing is it does allow us to try lots of different things, kind of see what works, but also different spaces have different things that work in. If you see when Warhammer Fantasy, like, we wouldn't be having kind of like flying eagles and things like that you can ride upon, like, because that doesn't fit with us, but it fits into Warhammer really well. So it's kind of that opportunity to try out stuff that we otherwise wouldn't be able to have a shot at.
And not just that, but every single thing. We can innovate on multiple fronts and try different ideas. When we were developing just a single game, then there's so much that you can put into a single game, and we always left with a lot of ideas that we should do this, we should do this. It would be nice to try out this, nice to try out that. But it seems that basically our crave to just try out things is matched with almost like a demand for doing multiple things, and it's good because we can try out multiple things, and yeah.
We don't have to leave as many stones unturned now, do we? We can actually try out the things that we're like, we should try that.
And all of the things that we learn from one game is carried over for the future, and we might not have like flying creatures in Three Kingdoms, but that's like learning how to handle flying creatures and what are the drawbacks, benefits. Is now we did it once, so next time when we do it in any region, anywhere, we will know how to start.
Yeah, super valuable experience, I think.
Well, we know that there is a big market out there, but first and foremost we wanted to make a total war that we never did China before, so that is the primary focus for us, and it allowed us to start and do something, a game that is heavily art driven and art focused. That since Shogun 2 we were not doing similar things, and it's a nice experiment again. It's like how to do this, and it's a nice extra addition that it might be successful, it might be interested by China. So.
Yeah. I think the first thing for us is to make a really good game in the Three Kingdoms, and if it is a really good game in the Three Kingdoms, which we really hope it is, and we have a lot of faith in it, you know, whatever we do is what we do, I think, at that point. I think our core is, let's make a really awesome game that everyone loves, and then we'll see where it goes.
They don't know it yet. It's for us. It's more like there are a lot of us, like both Simon and I, are big Three Kingdoms fans for a long time, and Wushu movies, and I remember long ago when Three Kingdoms didn't even come up as a thing that we could work, and we're sitting together with a couple of others on a couch and just watching Red Cliff. That it's like we have to make a game in Three Kingdoms China, because this exactly fits like Total War. It's like it's a absolutely good marriage. And
yeah, I think so. I think that's the kind of core thing. Is I like the concept that basically not many people in the West really know that much about this period. Like, let's say we're kind of fanboys, so we really shouldn't talk about everyone, but no generalizations. But a lot of people don't know this period at all. And one thing Total War has always done is teach. Right? We love teaching. I learned about medieval history from playing Medieval 1, right? Like, I actually learned a lot from this, and it's part of what kind of got me into both Total War and history in itself, and we're really good at doing that, and I think we've got a great opportunity to help teach people about something they may not know about as well.
Yeah, and it's important really cool. That Romance of Three Kingdoms, especially in the novel sense of way, is really one of the most important cultural piece of work in the Far East. It's in Southeastern Asia. It's not just for China, but in Japan in a separate form, in Korea, in Vietnam. It's very similar to like King Arthur on the West. You have somewhat mythical, somewhat historical subject, and it's part of the Western culture. No matter if it's the States, if it's France, if it's UK, if it's like Poland, everyone knows King Arthur, and it's very similar there. And we are thinking that it's a very good thing to bring over, and just again the whole teaching bit. That it's an interesting thing to learn about. It's an interesting thing to get out there and let people be interested.
Yeah.